Can briefly go to lawyer and former ACT MP as well as National Party candidate Stephen Franks. He's been watching on as this pair traded blows today. Stephen, good evening to you. What do you make of all of this?
I think the conversation was pretty much the kind of thing you'd actually hope conversations people were having. You want a party. They are the vetting agency for the people who stand, and you want them to have frank conversations about quality.
Do you want them to have sorry, Stephen, to cut in, do you want them to be that frank? I mean, he said Maureen Pugh was effing useless. If you had got in, I think you were 60th on the list back in the day in the 2008 election, if you had just got in and someone else of a favourable ethnic background was knocking on the door, what would you say if Simon Bridges was saying that about you?
Well, that's mixing up two elements. I mean, I'd say I certainly expect a party to have very frank discussion and to identify the duds and the passengers and to get rid of them. And it's one of the things that, rather astonishingly, the National Party did pretty well for in John Key's years. He had quite a turnover. But I think on the other side, we have really benefited from getting an inside look into how identity politics works these days. It's, that selecting your slate has nothing to do with selecting the best people who'd be good at passing law and working out unintended consequences and persuading each other. I mean, there are members of Parliament who are barely comprehensible in private conversation, let alone in the chamber, and it's supposed to be our premier debating chamber. So you had a very naked indication of where we've got to on this notion that there's merit selection in terms of suitability to lead us, suitability to govern us, suitability to express our values, and fine. Instead, he doubled down on that. He said he wants to reflect the mix, and I find that a very frank but appalling view of what our democracy should be about, reflecting everyone, reflecting incompetence, reflecting the average. No, you want the best people who are really good at it. It's like saying that you want the All Blacks to reflect the mix of New Zealand players. No, you want them to be the best players we can find.
Okay, certainly you're backing up the sort of the merit-based approach there rather than the sort of broad, diverse approach. That's a debate, of course, we have.
Well, he's talking about a quota, and not only that, he's talking about a quota in the context of people who seem to be paying to increase their quota.
Well, yes, and a non-official one, I suppose, as well. Look, I think I know what you're going to say to the answer to this one. Who comes out looking worse, Jami-Lee Ross or Simon Bridges?
Oh, I have no doubt about that. I mean, I think a betrayal of trust is dreadful, but out of and sort of painting it in a way where you have deliberately induced someone to be very blunt and frank, and you've known them for a very long time. It's awful. It's embarrassing. But there are advantages. We benefit always when uncomfortable truths come out, and if people can see how the sort of quota politics is working, I think that's good too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your time, Stephen Franks, and for your analysis there on a very interesting day in New Zealand politics.